So there's this guy over on YouTube. I had not one clue about who this guy was. Never saw him on YouTube before a day in my life until I finally created a Twitter account for my YouTube channel. And obviously, since I've done that, I've started interacting with a lot of other people on Twitter and social media and whatnot. And I've come across this guy, got a YouTube channel, Yellow Vest America. And that ain't a shout out, by the way. I have not watched very much of this guy's content. The first thing I really tuned into was a debate between him and Nico House. And this guy strikes me more and more as I listen to him. You know, while Nico House was having to be basically cut off by whoever that gentleman was moderating that debate, if that's what you want to call it, Nico's being cut off because he is, spewing point after point after point after point, and then this guy has these short, not full of fact responses. He might now that's not to say he didn't make factual points at all, but it was almost like putting a dirt bike up against a Ferrari here. Okay, there was no comparison. This guy just relied on a few talking points and eventually turned this whole thing into a big shouting and screaming match. And so obviously, friend of this channel, Big Talk Little Talk, he made a video this morning, got up, got my morning started, watched the video, and then I heard what this guy was saying about Tulsi Gabbard not being an ally to Bernie Sanders. Okay. So, I thought, since, I'm pretty big on this channel about calling out, the mainstream media, and I'm not hesitant to cover a YouTuber every now and then either when they're pushing a big line. We're going to take a listen to what this guy had to say, and we're going to break it down and dissect this step by step. I'm going back to a more traditional approach with some of my older videos with this one. I'm not going to let it just play all the way through because there's so much he's spitting. So this one may get a little lengthy because of all the pauses. I'm going to go ahead and give you the forewarning now. But we're going to, take this segment by segment, pause and give reaction as we go through the video. So let's just take a listen. So first off, I want to say this. For a guy who is supposed to be such an knowledgeable fellow, by the way, before we actually start playing this clip, what a ratioed video he has. You can go check it out if you want. But yeah, he's got like 39 likes to 105 dislikes. And remember, he doesn't have a massive channel here either. So yeah, my friend, clearly you got really ratioed in this video. So yeah, I would lay off a little bit if I were you, because that's a massive ratio.
You want to know why Tulsi Gabbard infuriates me, guys? Okay, listen. So she, everyone says, she endorsed Bernie Sanders in 2016. Okay, that's nice. But right now, she's polling at 5% or so in New Hampshire, which is a state Sanders needs. Okay? There's this mythology everywhere that her and Sanders are like allies and almost like running mates and such good friends. And that, they're in this together and they're almost like they're coordinating or something, where there's no evidence of that. Okay, you have that, yet she's moving from Hawaii to New Hampshire. She's renting a place in New Hampshire because she wants to take votes in that state. She is not running on the same ticket.
Yeah. She wants votes in that state because she's running for president. So what's this guy start his whole argument off with basically here? that Tulsi Gabbard is no friend of Bernie Sanders simply because she's running her own presidential campaign and, oh, dear Lord, for God's sake, she's taking the votes away from old King Progressive. So, in other words, your whole argument here is you want a monarch, Bernie Sanders, pretty much. No one can run against him. No one can give him any sort of competition. He is the one that is chosen by God. So you're doing this whole Rick Perry thing where Rick Perry said Trump was chosen by God. To whatever God or whatever belief you may adhere to, I don't want to assume your religious beliefs, but whatever you believe in, higher power, or even if you believe in nothing, you believe there is something that has anointed Bernie Sanders as the chosen one. He's the one. And that anyone who runs against this man, no matter whether they're similar to him or not, they can't be an ally no matter how close to him on policy that they may be, or better than him in some ways on policy they may be. Okay, I know all the Bernie people are going to say, she's not better than him on one thing. Well, we'll talk about that a little more. But again, you've clearly got the idea here that anyone who runs against him and claims no, that's an act of sacrilege. You can't be an ally of Bernie Sanders if you're running against him. So, again, this is why I'm an independent. Okay, I know capitalism gets this big bash recently, but I think, as I've said before, what a lot of people misconstrue with capitalism is actually corporatism. Okay, you're looking at what corporatism is. Now, I don't believe in a completely unregulated, let it run on its own capitalist system, because that is what is a breeding ground for corporatism. You need some socialist policies mixed in to make sure that capitalism runs as capitalism is supposed to run, that it doesn't turn into a corporatist system for the wealthy and the elite. That being said, what is one of the biggest benefits to capitalism? Choice. Okay? Now, I've explained how in some areas that choice can come back to bite you in the butt, like on healthcare, for example. When you allow that two-tiered system, one of the criticisms on Tulsi's plan, I'll be fair here, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, make it real quick. If everyone was under one plan, that means all the wealthy and the elites and the politicians had to be under that plan, in which case they're going to make that system run right. But with the two-tiered system, they can hop on their own little plan that they, of course, can afford, putting us all in the other, and then it could be just like any other social program. The government really doesn't give a flying crap whether it's running that efficiently or not. It does not affect them. That's why presidents have been tapping Social Security, and you've got a serious problem in the funding of that for quite some time. They've been, taking out money and putting IOUs back and claiming that they will replace the money. And you've got a system right now that is completely reliant for the people drawing the checks on the people who are currently paying taxes into Social Security. So in other words, what I'm paying into Social Security funds the people who are currently drawing Social Security. What they contributed is not paying for them, which is the way it was supposed to be set up, because the government has mismanaged this system and not done what they should have with it for so long, because they don't intend to draw it when they grow old and retire, okay? Because I say grow old, some of them are already old as dirt. But nonetheless, they're not intending to draw Social Security, okay? So that's the problem there. When you have something that the government does not get impacted by, they tend to mismanage it much more, which is why the odds are by the time I get to the point I'm retired, Social Security is probably going to be crashed, which means I've been paying taxes into something I might never see a dime of unless it's fixed before I retire, which means basically I was paying into a Ponzi scheme. Okay? So that's the problem, the argument back as to why Medicare for All, Bernie's plan, is in some ways better than Tulsi's, because people in charge will make it run more efficiently. Okay? But Tulsi has the plan that gives the choice, okay? But take the healthcare thing out of it. The simple fact that she's running, it's choice. See, what you're not gathering here, Mr. Yellow Vest, is the fact that Tulsi Gabbard is able to run. I think he goes on to make this point because this is a democratic republic, okay? People like to say democracy. We're not a direct democracy. We're a republic, okay? It has, democratic values imprinted into it, but we're a representative democracy, okay? But the point is, we still have enough of a form of democracy in this country that we can have a choice. There is no candidate that is simply entitled to our vote. And when you act like someone is, when you act like they're entitled to our vote, you piss us off. You will not win my vote by telling me that there is someone out there that is entitled to my vote. You know who else tried that tactic? Hillary Clinton. You know how many times I've ever voted for Hillary Clinton? 0. I didn't even consider voting for Hillary Clinton in 2016. And by the way, I will never, ever, in any election, vote for Hillary Clinton. To quote the line from Grumpy Old Men, I'd rather kiss a dead moose's butt than vote for Hillary Clinton. Pure and simple. And Bernie Sanders has to earn my vote. And he lost my vote when he bowed down to Hillary Clinton. That's why out of the top 3 that I have, he ranks last. He ranks last. It's a real close race for me between Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang. I pull slightly more for Tulsi Gabbard because I think that this whole foreign policy thing is a real big issue. But I do think Andrew Yang's got a good handle on what's going on with jobs and automation and things like that, and the universal basic income and whatnot. Okay, so I really like Andrew Yang's, ideas on that side of the field. So if he ever got ahead of Tulsi, he ends up getting a nomination, I'd have no problem voting for him. I would still, be satisfied, I guess, with Bernie Sanders as a nominee, but I would be nowhere near as happy about it as I would be with one of those two. Okay, and the reason why is I feel like the Bernie Sanders you see today is not the Bernie Sanders people try to look back at over time that stood with the unions. Yes, he does these rallies, but he has clearly shown he'll kiss some Democrat ass when he thinks he needs to. Okay? So again, you're completely, off in never land here thinking that there's just some system in this country where this person or that person is entitled to my vote. No, you got to earn my vote. And if you don't say the things that satisfy me as a voter, you're not getting my vote. I don't care how many of you, progressives and liberals out there think he's entitled to my vote. He's not entitled to anything. He's got to earn it. I have to go to work and earn my living. He needs to go to work and earn my vote. And after what he did in 2015, let me tell you something. That's one hell of an uphill battle as long as Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang are in this race. And see, before I hit resume here, that's what the problem with these guys are. They don't want to admit it. They want to give you all these other reasons and and try to belittle Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang. But that's the real problem. Because they love Bernie Sanders so much, and they know he pissed so many people off doing what he did to Hillary Clinton. That's why they're acting like this. That's why they're demanding for the vote. Because they know he's lost all those votes, and they just simply don't want to admit the reason why. They don't want to admit that the reason a Tulsi Gabbard or an Andrew Yang are probably doing as well as they are in this race is because there's a lot of people who liked Bernie Sanders the last time around and want a different outsider now because they felt like he showed his true colors in 2015 and endorsed the very thing he was campaigning against. Pure and simple. Okay? then they just don't want to admit it. They'd rather demonize Tulsi Gabbard, demonize Andrew Yang, and try to claim that they're not allies and so on and so forth. And we'll get back to more about that not ally thing in a little bit. But let's just go ahead and resume what this guy has to say. Get this over with.
Get as Bernie, she is running against him. This, yes, it's a democracy. Yes, she's free to do what she wants. Okay, she's free to run in New Hampshire. You're free to vote for her. But you can't sit here and tell me that she is helping Bernie Sanders. But
She's not helping Bernie? Okay. I'll say it again. How many times did Bernie Sanders take Kamala Harris to task in the debates? You see, until Tulsi Gabbard got a hold of Kamala Harris, she was a top tier candidate. You remember all that? She was polling pretty well once upon a time. And then came along Tulsi Gabbard. Okay? And even though he's still a media darling, let's take Pete Buttigieg, for example, okay? Pete Buttigieg has just been climbing on along in these polls. And then Tulsi Gabbard got a hold of him in the last debate, and now more and more and more stuff seems to be coming out on good old Mayor Pete. And I think all it would take is another, good exchange or two with Mayor Pete. And unfortunately, she's boycotting this next debate, so we won't get to see that. But I think there would just take a couple of more exchanges with Mayor Pete before she sank his ship. And I think if she really got a hold of Joe Biden, she could sink his real fast. He's already been stumbling up enough himself. So here's my problem. She's not helping Bernie. She's doing Bernie's heavy lifting. Bernie's not taking these people down. He's not taking these people down. He's sitting up there trying to play Mr., pacifist nice guy on the stage. Oh, I like Joe Biden. Joe Biden's a friend of mine. Okay? That's great, Bernie. He could be a friend of yours when they steal the election again, too. By, ignoring candidates, polling only certain demographics, and also being very particular in which polls they will use versus not use, even refuse to use polls they've used in the past. So there's clear signs of a whole lot of, screwing and BS going on here. And, meanwhile, your response to all that, before we got, I like Joe Biden. Joe Biden's a friend of mine. Great. Okay. So, Yellow Vest. Let me get this straight. Tulsi Gabbard is no ally of Bernie Sanders, even though she's far closer to Bernie Sanders' policies than Joe Biden. But it came out of Bernie's own mouth earlier this year that I like Joe Biden. Joe Biden's a friend of mine. So Biden's his friend, but Tulsi's not, huh? Okay. I'm pretty sure in most polls, again, if you believe the polls, Joe Biden's polling ahead of Bernie. So who do you think is really more of a threat to Bernie Sanders? A status quo, Wall Street bought, corporate hack like Joe Biden, who Bernie Sanders said himself he likes and is his friend, or Tulsi Gabbard, who is just running, polling not too high according to all these polls, and taking out some of these other corporate hacks on the stage, which Bernie Sanders has not been able to do. But she's not his friend. No, she's not his friend, but according to your beloved King Progressive candidate here, Bernie Sanders, I like Joe Biden. Joe Biden's a friend of mine. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Running on a totally different platform than Bernie Sanders. She's not running on Medicare for all. She's not running on the Green New Deal. She's not running on a federal jobs guarantee. She's not running on breaking up ISP monopolies. She's not running on canceling all student debt. She's not running on canceling medical debt. She's not running on workplace democracy. She's not running on standing in solidarity.
Okay, so just sticking with the first two, I'm not familiar if Tulsi has mentioned canceling student debt, medical debt, things like that. Uh, that is something that I could get behind. Um, Namely because we've had such a out of balance system when it comes to healthcare and education in this country for so long. People paying for things they really shouldn't be paying for. If we could bail out Wall Street, we could bail out this. It's just the way I see it. I mean, if it could be done for the rich and powerful who probably had enough money, they could have at least put a good dent in their own debt and didn't do it. They didn't take anything out of their own dime to try and pay their debt off. The government did it for them. So us little people who are having troubles with things like that right now, we paid taxes along with them to pay off their debt, but we can't get that in return. So I agree with that. Now, whether I haven't heard if Tulsi's for that or not, if she isn't, I would like it very much she is. So if she isn't, that's one thing I will agree with Bernie Sanders on, for pushing those narratives. I would agree with Bernie Sanders' message on that. However, not for Medicare for all. So she's not for Bernie's Medicare for all, and many people argue that it would be a two-tiered system, but as I just said earlier, it's based off Australia's. It's not Pete Buttigieg's plan, and in all honesty, if you had to, get the votes to secure it, the big talking point that's scaring a lot of people who are not policy nerds away from Bernie Sanders' plan is the whole duplicative provision that would basically outlaw the private insurance and all that stuff. The right wing is using that as a sledgehammer to try and dismantle the argument for Medicare for all. First, they said price, and price didn't work. And price didn't work because you had things like the Koch brothers study that come out and said it could actually end up saving money. So they lost the war on that. Then they had to come at it from another angle. They came at it from, it's going to take away your option. Don't you like being in a free society? Don't you like having a choice? What if you could only go to one restaurant? Don't you like having an option available? Well, you won't have an option available. You get this. You got one thing and one thing only. So they're using that as a way of scaring people away from it. Tulsi Gabbard's argument, you don't have that. People can buy if they want to. They can. They really can. But they still have to pay taxes into the other system. So if you got the money to do that, by all means, go for it, okay? And so, she's creating Medicare for all because everyone's paying taxes into it. But then if you, for some reason, want that private plan, you can get it, okay? Green New Deal, she has not endorsed Bernie Sanders or AOC's Green New Deal. And guess what? I have no problem with that. Now, I haven't read over Bernie's Green New Deal too much, but I looked at AOC's. Wasn't a fan. I'm not opposed to another New Deal in this country, okay? But AOC's Green New Deal tried to lop, 10 to 20 different things into one bill? It was unrealistic. And I'm not just talking about, how all the energy change stuff. No. She's trying to lock that and all these other, policy proposals that should be ran on different bills. She's trying to lump it all into one gigantic bill. Have you looked at how things go on Capitol Hill? Have you looked at how bills get passed? They would take a fraction of what you tried to lump into that one bill. Okay? They would take a fraction of that and haggle over it like bickering children. And yet you tried to put that on steroids and thought that somehow with a Republican Senate that stood half a chance of passing. Okay. Wow. Again, I'm not opposed to a New Deal, but do a New Deal. Focus on the rest of that stuff in their own bills. You can't make these big lumped up super bills and expect to just get it all passed. That our system is not designed for that. That's designed for something like an oligarchy slash monarchy where, there's not going to be many people who are going to, protest and filibuster and this and that, okay? So you can't just get all that done. So, but Tulsi does have her own plan for dealing with climate change and fossil fuels. So yeah, just to make note of that.
With Latin America, with Jeremy Corbyn, with the global left. She's not running on any of that. She's running on her own nonsense. So acceptable to the left, acceptable to Trump voters, acceptable, and we need to all just. They literally called her a compromise candidate. So I'm just gonna make everybody happy. The left, conservatives, all you can't make everybody happy. That is not the era that we're in. Okay, the country since
Yeah, that's a very good point this guy's making. You can't make everyone happy, and clearly, you didn't make people happy with that video, because you got 39 likes and 105 dislikes, my friend. So I guess you would be the expert on how to not make people happy, huh?
the 1900s, since like the 1980s, 1970s, has been moving to the right. No matter if it's a Democrat or Republican, has been moving to the right. And with Trump, they are super serving their base. All while on the Democrat side, they punch their base. They punch to the left. While the Republicans are super serving their base. You want borders? Here you go. Let's build concentration camps along the borders, put people in cages. Okay, yeah, whatever the right wing wants, let's give it to them. The country's been moving so far left, so far right. So, if the country's moving so right, and all the policies that people want, like healthcare, education, living wages, those are all left wing things. Only the left wing has solutions that people actually want. Over 70% of people want Medicare for all. For example, 90% want universal background checks. So the left has the solutions. Is the solution of a country moving far right? Is the solution to placate everybody? To try and please everybody? No. The solution is to grab the country and drag it way to the left. That's the solution.
I've got to interject one thing. I know that there would probably be some people who would come after my style, my voice. Obviously, when you hear someone from the South talk, we've obviously got that stereotype and that reputation. You have that Southern accent thing going. People tend to relate that to being a dumb redneck most of the time. So, there are probably some people that would take shots at me too for my voice and my accent, but what is up with the way this guy talks? Does he talk like this all the time? Or is he just trying to add some extra flavor to this video? What is this stuff he puts and like everything he says? What the hell is that? Is it the right idea to placate everyone? What is it? Honestly, I can't take this guy seriously anymore. Listening to all that. Talk about being over dramatic. Son, calm down. I can't tell if you're trying to have an honest conversation here and trying to make points, or if you're about to get the hell off while you're recording this video. Because it sounds like you're about to bust in your britches, son. Calm the hell down.
So Bernie and Tulsi don't even have the same worldview, the same ideological viewpoint. And she is still running in the race while Bernie has, on many foreign policy issues, outclassed her, especially with Israel and Palestine. She's still running in the race where she's allowed to, when she's still running in a race and she's trying to market herself as some I'll make everybody happy candidate, and she's over here galvanizing 5-6% of people, 6% of voters in New Hampshire. She's over here marketing to, with grifters. You guys know who they are. Grifters going into Bernie circles.
I've got to make one quick point. So a lot of people give Tulsi criticism on the Israel-Palestine thing. I do believe Israel has been, in a lot of ways, very, very oppressive toward Palestine. There's definitely a lot of tension there. But at the same time, I think while we need to pressure Israel to start, trying to work a peaceful solution out here with Palestine, we still need to recognize Israel is an ally of ours. While we need to put the pressure on them to, just not stir up any trouble, we've got a long-standing relationship with Israel, so I wouldn't alienate the country, just me personally. But Bernie's been way better than Tulsi on foreign policy, huh? Okay. Where was Bernie's stance on Libya again? You wanna go and dig that one up for me there, Yellow Vest? How about what was Bernie's stance on Venezuela? Because he was pushing a lot of the mainstream media's talking points about that. And something else he was pushing talking points about? Russia and Russiagate. Imagine that. Now, obviously there were indictments from Bob Mueller on some Russians, but when you looked into just how much influence those Russians he indicted had, like, what did they reach? Only a handful of people on social media or something like that? It was peanuts. It was peanuts. Meanwhile, something that the DOJ has not reported on, I'm going to go ahead and give you a spoiler because I may be making a video about this later. The DOJ has charged more people, and I haven't heard the mainstream media cover this at all, but apparently there were some people connected to the UAE, United Arab Emirates. They were trying to get involved and donate, money into the Clinton campaign, and then they moved on to Trump after the election. And they've indicted them now. You hadn't heard a peep about that, huh? Okay. But yeah, in the meantime, you had Bernie pushing all these corporate talking points, pushing the whole Russian thing. And I've heard Tulsi Gabbard wanting to go back to paper ballot to get rid of these computers that can be hacked by 11-year-olds. When we going to start hearing Bernie Sanders talk about that, huh?
Circles, trying to pretend, they're allies. And, if you stand with Bernie, AOC, and all of them, you need to stand with Tulsi, too. And just nonsense. So that doesn't make her an ally. She's not an ally. And at this point, she's hurting the progressive movement. She doesn't give a about the progressive movement. This ain't even about Bernie. Take Bernie out of the equation. She doesn't give one flying shit about the progressive movement. All she cares about is herself and her whatever it is. She's trying to get her name out there, her platform out there. She actually thinks she can win or something. No idea. But she definitely does not give a shit. There's been years and years and years of work from left.
And Bernie Sanders does by endorsing Hillary Clinton? Are you freaking kidding me? Hillary Clinton is about as progressive as a Republican. You do realize that, right? You were just complaining earlier in this video. I think it's become very obvious why you had 105 dislikes to your 39 likes, my friend. You were just complaining about how the Democratic Party and the country as a whole have been getting pulled to the right ever since the Reagan years back in the 80s. You were just complaining about that. Well, which Democrat president took the party to the right? Which president passed NAFTA, which was set up by George H.W. Bush? Bill Clinton. Who was starting the deregulation of Wall Street? Bill Clinton. And Bernie endorsed his wife, Hillary Clinton, who, with the help of the DNC, rigged the primaries against him. And he claimed to not be a Democrat, but an independent. He didn't even have party connection to Hillary Clinton. He claimed he was an independent. He keeps an I after his name, standing for independent. Now, we all know most politicians tend to vote along party lines and adhere to tribalism. But if you're not even a member of that party and you went out and voted for a candidate who is the culprit of the problems you've been complaining about, screwed you over in the primary with the help of that party's national committee, and you go out and cast your vote for them and go out, because I know people are going to say, well, Tulsi Gabbard voted for Hillary Clinton. She didn't campaign for her. And that's the last thing. Go out and campaign for them. Not just hold your nose and vote for them, but campaign for them. Wow, my man.
Wing activists, to activists working on Medicare for all, activists fighting for a Green New Deal, activists fighting for jobs guarantee. There's been activists working for decades to get a progressive in there. And she wants to around in New Hampshire, which she's allowed to, but she is around in New Hampshire in a race that could come down to that, to a man that she endorsed in 2016. She's around, not helping him. She is not your friend. She is not your ally. She is not your buddy. She's a competitor. She's a blockage to our policies. And she needs to be defeated.
Wow. That's a lot of emotion you put in there at the end. This guy. What a joke. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to get down into the mud with this guy. Okay? A freaking joke, man. I don't know much about you, but from the little bit I've gathered, you seem like a complete hack, my friend. A complete hack. Okay? There's one thing about it. If there was ever something I disagreed with Tulsi Gabbard on, I'll be vocal about it. But there's the hypocrisy of a hack like you. And I'm going to emphasize it. You're a freaking hack, my man. Okay? And the reason why is because while you're talking about that Tulsi Gabbard doesn't give about, the progressive movement, and that Bernie does, just because Bernie's been talking about progressive movement for so long, I'm not going to say Bernie Sanders is not a progressive. I won't say that. Okay? What I will say is this. He is not the Bernie Sanders that a lot of people think he is anymore. He's just not that guy. He's not that guy anymore. Okay? And I think the big reason as to why is because, for whatever reason, he's now thought that it's best to try and somehow work with the current Democratic Party to get things accomplished, because he's trying to lead this movement to take it back over, but he thinks in the meantime he has to try to tiptoe around them and play ball and blah, blah, blah. And that's exactly why that will never work. And that's criticism I have of Tulsi, too. She's got the same ideology. She thinks that there's going to be this massive takeover of a political party that is being funded by all these rich and powerful that have the media in their back pocket. No. They are going to shut you up. They're going to silence you. They're going to pretend you're not even running. They're going to take your name off the screen. They're going to fire journalists who try and cover you, just like they did to Bernie back in 2015, Ed Schultz. Okay? They're going to do all these things to keep your message quiet. Quiet. They don't want it to be heard. And you think that Bernie Sanders is the champion of that, yet he endorsed and campaigned for and wasn't even a member of the party of the candidate who represents so many of the things he's complained about and has griped and grumbled about during his time in politics. And he thought that that was the lesser of two evils compared to Donald Trump. When even though Donald Trump said some hideous things on policy, he was at least campaigning for more things that adhered to some of Bernie's message, way more so than Hillary Clinton. He was the one on the stage saying we shouldn't be involved in all these wars. He was the one on stage saying we're going to bring jobs back that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama come out and said they're not coming back. And meanwhile, Bernie talking about those trade deals that lost the jobs and how we need to repair that. Who talked about that? Trump. Who beat Hillary Clinton over the head when it came to trade deals and the TPP? When you had Hillary Clinton on the record for saying that the TPP was going to be the gold standard of trade deals, and Trump got on a debate stage and smacked her all around with that very talking point, that you called this the gold standard of free trade deals. Who went after Clinton with that in the primaries? Bernie Sanders. Who took her to task on it in the general election? Donald Trump. Who was the one out of that little loop that was for free trade deals, at least campaigning? Hillary Clinton. And you endorsed her. And that's what you call someone being a champion of that movement? Someone who gets screwed by the problem and endorses the problem? That's being a champion of it. This guy, man. See, this is the problem. A lot of people are saying we need more indie news out there, more indie media out there that's going to tell the truth that the mainstream media isn't telling people. You got to be careful, man. You got to be careful because I'm starting to see there are more and more channels out there like this hack. Even though he's still low on the totem pole, they're mainstream media 2.0 on YouTube. Pure and simple. They're not, if anything, I feel like this guy is being, more gaslighting here than sometimes even the mainstream media can be. Because he's definitely trying to gaslight some people. There's no doubt about it. This guy, wow. All I can say is, as far as this guy is concerned, the only time you will ever hear me mention him, more than likely, is when I have to criticize him on something. Pure and simple, because this guy is certainly not playing, he's not playing this game as an honest player. He's not. He's not coming on here trying to, actually talk about what could make a change, what may do better. He's just trying to come on here and run his mouth and smear people and convince more and more people why Bernie Sanders is entitled to their vote. So, yeah, you and all the rest of your company who thinks that Bernie Sanders is entitled to any votes, you're living in the wrong country, my man, because in this country, you have to earn the votes you receive. They're not handed to you. They're not given to you. You tried to apply that to Hillary Clinton in 2016, and she didn't win. And if you try and apply that to Bernie, he won't win.